Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to crochet this plaid sweater. I'll be making a small here, but sizes X small to 3X large are included in this video and also in the written pattern that I have linked down below. But here are the supplies you're going to be needing. So getting started on this pattern, I have my 5mm hook and I am using the darkest color that I have, which is this dark brown. The first thing that we're going to work on for this pattern is going to be our bottom border. To work our bottom border, I'm going to first make a slip knot. Once you have made your slip knot, we're going to begin the bottom border with a chain of 9. However, you can make this chain however long or short you would like your bottom border to be. To make a chain, simply yarn over and pull through. Again, just yarn over and pull through until you have a total of 9. Once you have finished your chain of 9, we're going to begin on row 1. To do row 1, we're going to double crochet into each chain all the way across, starting with this second chain. To double crochet, just yarn over, insert your hook into that second chain, then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Working another double crochet, again you just want to yarn over, insert your hook, pull through 2, and then pull through 2. Now just continue to work these double crochets into each of these chains. So once you have finished working these double crochets into each of our chains, you just want to chain 1 and turn your work. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch for the rest of the pattern. So beginning on row 2, we're going to skip this first turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch. We're going to be working back bar double crochets into each of these stitches. To work a back bar double crochet, yarn over. Now, instead of inserting your hook into both of these loops as you normally would, we're actually only going to insert our hook into this back bar or back loop, just like this. Pull through 2, and then pull through 2. Doing this again, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook only into this back bar, just like this. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Now just continue to do these back bar double crochets into each of these stitches. So once you have finished working these back bar double crochets, this is what my work is looking like. Once you reach the end, just chain 1, turn your work. To continue this pattern for the bottom border, you just want to repeat this row, which is row 2 with our back bar double crochets, until you have a total of 27 rows for your bottom border. So I'm just going to quickly work up my bottom border, repeating row 2, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done with my work. So this is my 27 rows with these back bar double crochets repeating row 2. Now once our bottom border is all done, we're actually not going to be cutting and fastening off just yet. From here we're going to move directly to working the back panel, and we're going to be working the back panel coming all the way on top of the bottom border, so that's why we're not going to be cutting and fastening off. So yeah, we're going to move on to the back panel, so let's get started on that. So now we're going to be moving on to the back panel. The first thing we're going to do is just chain 1 from the end of our bottom border. Now we're going to be working a foundation row coming all the way down our bottom border. So to work this foundation row into each row of these double crochets, we're going to be working two single crochets, so 2 single crochets for one row. To show you what that's going to look like, to single crochet, you want to insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. So inside the same row, I'm going to insert my hook once again, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to be looking at the next row and work 2 single crochets once again. So that's 1, and this is 2. And to this next row, working 2 single crochets. And to this next row, I'm going to work 2 single crochets once again. Now you just want to continue on working two single crochets per 1 double crochet row until you have met the very end. So I'm going to work up all of my single crochets, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have reached the end of my work over here. Once you have reached the end of your foundation row, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Now moving on to row 1, we're going to skip this first turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to work 2 double crochets. So into this very first stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet, and then a second double crochet into this next stitch. So for this next stitch, we're actually going to change our color to our medium color yarn, which is this light brown in my case. So into this third stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So we are not going to pull through these 2 loops just yet. We're actually going to yarn over with our medium color yarn. I'm just going to yarn over with this hook and then just pull through both of those loops to change color. So this is what your work should be looking like. Now into the next 2 stitches, we're going to work 2 regular double crochets, and when we work these double crochets, you want to make sure that our 2 colors previously are staying inside the center of it so that we carry the yarn for this pattern. To show you what that's going to look like, I'm going to yarn over and then just work a regular double crochet. I'm going to work another double crochet into the next stitch. Now into the third stitch, we're going to change color once again. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And now that I have 2 loops on my hook, I'm going to drop the color that we were using, which was the main color yarn, and then yarning over with the dark color once again and pull through both of those loops to change our color. So this is what it's looking like. So now I'm going to work 2 more double crochets with our new color. So this is my first double crochet, and then here is the second. Sorry if I sound a little bit weird because I am sick, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit rough. But anyways, after you have finished these 2 double crochets into this third double crochet, we're going to change our color. So inserting my hook, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I'm going to drop the color that we were using previously, and then yarn over, pull through 2 of the loops to change color. So as you can see, we are basically changing color every 3 stitches. So you want to repeat this pattern coming all the way across your row until you have reached the end of your work. But just to do this one more time with you guys, I'm going to work 2 double crochets. This is 1, and then another double crochet. Into this third stitch, change your color. So I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, pull through 2, drop this color, and then yarn over with our darkest color once again and pull through both of those loops. So again, I'm just going to repeat changing my color every 3 stitches, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I have reached the end of my work. So I have just finished working all the way down row 1, changing my color every 3rd stitch. So this is what my work is looking like for row 1. Now to move on to row 2. Oh, and I forgot to say that you should have changed color into this very last stitch. But moving on to row 2, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Row 2 is going to be our last repeat row. So beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work 2 double crochets with our darkest color. So once you have worked these 2 double crochets into this next stitch, we're going to change color. Except this time we're going to be changing color to our lightest color, which is this white for me. So to do that, I'm just going to insert my hook, pull through 2, and then once you have 2 loops on your hook, you can go ahead, yarn over with your next color, and then just pull through. Now into the next 2 stitches, we're going to work 2 more double crochets. So this is my first double crochet, and then this is my second double crochet. Into this 3rd stitch, we're going to change color back to our darkest color. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull through 2, and then drop this previous color yarn over with my darkest color and pull straight through. With our darkest color, we're going to work 2 more double crochets. So this is my first one, and then here's my second one. Then to the 3rd stitch, we're going to change color back to our lightest color. So just as I'm doing here, just yarning over with my lightest color, and then just pulling through just like this. Once again, work 2 double crochets. 1, and then here is 2. Changing color into this 3rd stitch, just like this. And now you probably guessed it, for row 2 we are going to be alternating our darkest color and our lightest color, keeping in mind that for row 1 we were alternating the darkest color and the medium color, so now we're doing the darkest color and the lightest color. But I'm going to change color every 3rd row, as you guys can see, just like this, until I have worked all the way down my row, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So this is what my work is looking like after I have completed row 2, repeating our darkest color and our lightest color, as you guys can see. So for row 1 we repeated our medium color and our darkest color. For row 2 we repeated our darkest color and our lightest color. So now to continue the pattern for our back panel, you want to repeat row 1 and row 2 until you have a total of 40 rows. However, you can make this however long or short you would like. I'm making a full length sweater, but you can make this cropped or you can make it a dress. But I'm going to work up my 40 rows, repeating row 1 and row 2, and then I'm going to see you guys back to cut and fasten off. So I have just finished up my back panel. I have 40 rows in total, and this is our bottom border, and this is where we repeated row 1 and row 2 with our plaid stitch. So now that we have our 40 rows, and oh, I forgot to mention that you have to cut and fasten off once you reach the end, which I have already done there. But once you have your 40 rows, you are all done with your back panel. The next step to our project is going to be moving on to working the front panel. So let's go ahead and get started on the front panel. So now we are going to move on to working the front panel, and the front panel is everything that we have done for the back panel. So repeating all of the bottom border, and from the foundation row to row 35, you want to repeat the back panel. So over here I've already done the bottom border, same as we did for the front panel, and then I repeated row 1 and row 2 with our plaid stitch. until I had a total of 35 rows in total. So for the front panel we had 40 rows, but for the back panel we're going to stop at row 35. And the reason for this is that the next 5 rows we're actually going to be working the shoulder straps and not the back panel, sorry, or the front panel, yeah. So from here we are not going to cut and fasten off, we're going to move directly to working the first shoulder strap. So let's go ahead and get started on the first shoulder strap. So now we're going to be moving on to working the first shoulder strap. So what I've already done here is that I've chained and turned my work. So from here you're going to alternate your darkest color and your medium color that we were doing before. And you want to do that until you have 15 stitches across your row. So you're not going to be going all the way across, you're only going to be going into 15 stitches across your row. I'm going to work that up and then I'm going to see you guys back for the next steps. So I have made a back here and I have just worked 15 stitches across my row. Now once you have worked these 15 stitches across your row, I'm using the medium color yarn right now. Now into the next stitch we're going to double crochet. And into the next 2 stitches we're going to work a double crochet decrease. To work a double crochet decrease you want to yarn over. Insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now from here, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. And once you have 2 loops on your hook, we're actually going to change color as well. So I'm going to yarn over with the darkest color and then just pull through both of those loops. From here, chain 1 and turn your work. So now moving on to row 2, we're going to do another decrease into this first stitch. Once again, to do a decrease, you want to yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, insert your hook into that next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And for this decrease, we're going to change color once again. So I'm going to yarn over with my lightest color, and then yarn over, pull through both of those loops. So from here you want to continue your regular stitch pattern, working 2 double crochets with your light color. And then into the 3rd stitch we're going to change our color back to the darkest one. Just like this, and so repeat doing your lightest color and your darkest color into each of your stitches across your row. And once you reach the end of your row, you of course just want to chain 1, chain 1 and then turn your work. So now moving on to row 3, and to this first stitch we're going to do our regular stitch pattern, alternating our darkest color and then our medium color yarn. And you want to do that until you have 4 stitches at the end of your row. So I'm going to work that up until I have 4 stitches, and then I'm going to see you guys back to do another decrease. Once you have finished working down your row until you have these 4 stitches at the end remaining, into the next 2 stitches we're going to work 2 double crochets. And now into the next 2 stitches we're going to do another double crochet decrease, and we're also going to change our color to the lightest color. So to do that I'm just going to insert my hook, pull through, into the last stitch pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then yarning over with my lightest color and then just pulling through 2, chain 1 and turn my work. Now moving on to row 4, and to this first stitch we're going to do a double crochet decrease. And this time it's actually just going to be a regular double crochet decrease, so no changing our color. Just going to decrease, a regular decrease, and then now into the next stitch, now we're going to change our color into this double crochet. So now I'm just going to change my color to my darkest color. And then from here, you just want to alternate doing your darkest color, your lightest color, your darkest color, and your lightest color until the end of your row. And once you have reached the end of row 4, you can just go ahead, chain 1, and turn your work. So moving on to row 5, which is actually our very last row for our first shoulder strap. And to this first stitch, we're going to alternate our darkest color and our medium color into each of these stitches until 2 stitches remain at the end. And then that is going to be our very last decrease. Once you have these 2 stitches at the end of your row, we're just going to do that very last double crochet decrease. So just into these last 2 stitches. Once you have done this last decrease, you can go ahead, cut, and fasten off. And now this is the end of our first shoulder strap. Once we have the first shoulder strap done, we're going to move on to working the second shoulder strap. So let's go ahead and get started on the second shoulder strap over here. So moving on to working the second shoulder strap, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to skip 18 stitches from the first worked stitch of our first shoulder strap. So what I mean by that is into this first unworked stitch, we're going to start counting from here. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then into the next stitch, which is the 19th stitch, we're going to insert our hook. But first I'm just going to make a slip knot with this darkest color. And then just insert my hook right into that 19th stitch. From here, you just want to yarn over and pull through to slip stitch to secure. Chain 1. Moving on to row 1. Into this first stitch, we're going to work a decrease. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook into that very first stitch, pull up a loop. Into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's just going to be a regular decrease. We are not going to change our yarn just yet. So into the next stitch, we're going to change our yarn to the medium color. And once you have changed your yarn to the medium color, we're just going to do that regular stitch pattern, which is repeating our medium color and our darkest color, our medium color and our darkest color, into each stitch all the way across row 1. Once you've reached the end of row 1, we can just go ahead, chain 1, and turn our work. So moving on to row 2 of our second shoulder strap. Into this first stitch, we're going to alternate doing our dark color and then our light color, our dark color, and then our light color until you have 4 stitches at the end of your row. So now that I have 4 stitches at the end of my row, I'm going to change color to the lightest color into the last stitch, then double crochet. And to the last stitches, we're going to do a double crochet decrease. And this is just going to be a regular double crochet decrease. And here's the last stitch. Just like this. Now just chain 1 and turn your work. So now moving on to row 3, into this first stitch, we're going to be working a double crochet decrease and also changing our color to the darkest color. So I'm just going to work this decrease like this, and then I'm going to change my color. So once you have changed your color with that decrease, you can just go ahead and work these regular double crochets alternating our color every third stitch as we have been doing until the end of your row. So once you have these 4 stitches at the end of your row, you can just double crochet and then change color to the lightest color in the next stitch. And into the last 2 stitches, we're going to change our color. We're going to do a decrease and we're going to change our color to the darkest color. So I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, and to that very last stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then change to the darkest color, just like this. Chain 1 and turn your work. So once you have these 4 stitches at the end of your row, into the next stitch, just work a double crochet, and then into the next stitch, we're going to change back to our light color. There we go, and then into the last 2 stitches, we're going to work a decrease, and we're also going to change our color to the medium color. So I'm just going to work this decrease, and then just change my color into this medium. Chain 1 and turn your work. Moving on to row 3 with our medium color, we're going to work a decrease into the first stitch, and this is just going to be a regular decrease. Just like this. Then work a regular double crochet into that next stitch, and then change your color to the dark color. And just repeat changing your medium color and your dark color into each stitch across your row. You can go ahead and chain and turn your work. So moving on to row 4, we're going to repeat doing our dark color and our light color as we have been doing before until we have 2 stitches at the end of our row. Once you have these 2 stitches at the end of your row, you probably guessed it, we're going to do a decrease. Chain 1 and turn. So now moving on to row 5, which is going to be our last row. And to this first stitch, we're first going to decrease, and we're also going to change color to the medium color. So I'm just going to change my color and decrease. And then from here, you probably guessed it, you just want to repeat doing your medium color and your darkest color into each stitch all the way across your row. So once I reached the end of row 5, I did go ahead, cut and fasten off. And now that we have both of our shoulder straps, that now completes our back bodice. So we have the border, the back panel, and then both of our shoulder straps. Now that this is all complete, we are going to set this aside, and now we're going to get started on seaming the bodice. So let's go ahead and get started on seaming the bodice. So now we're going to be moving on to seaming the bodice together. So over here, I just laid my front panel on top of my back panel. just like this. And what we're going to do first is that beginning into this very bottom corner where our border is, we're going to be whip stitching all the way up the side until we have 6.5 inches from the top remaining. And the 6.5 inches from the top is going to leave room for our sleeves. So to show you guys how to whip stitch, I have my tapestry needle and some yarn. I'm using the darkest color right now. I'm going to insert my hook right into the first stitch of the front panel and then into the first stitch of the back panel, and then just pull through like that. Now coming back around, inserting my hook into the next 2 stitches, so the front panel and the back panel, and then just pull through into the next 2 stitches, and then just pull through. So as I mentioned before, you just want to continue on whip stitching just like this until you have made it 6.5 inches from the top. So here is 6.5 inches. I'm going to stop at this point. And once you have done one side of your work, of course you want to do that for the opposite side as well. Whip stitching all the way up the side until you have 6.5 inches from the top. I'm going to just quickly seam my bodice with the 2 sides, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done with my bodice. So I have made it back here with my bodice all seamed up. What I went and did is that I whip stitched all the way up the sides, as you guys can see, until I had 6.5 inches from the top remaining, and that's going to be for our sleeves. I did the same thing on the other side as well, just whip stitching up the side until I had 6.5 inches from the top. And the last thing that I went ahead and did is that I also whip stitched together these 2 shoulder straps. I just did that off camera, but I just whip stitched all the way across these 2 shoulder straps to connect. And once I was done with everything, I did flip my work backside out so that the good side should be facing us. So now that we are all done seaming up our bodice, we're going to set this aside, and now we're going to get started on working on the sleeves. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to be moving on to working the sleeves. So I have over here my darkest color, and I'm just going to make a slip knot. Once you have made your slip knot, just go ahead and insert your hook right into the seam of our work. And just slip stitch to secure, yarn over, and pull through everything. So now we're going to be working first the foundation row for our sleeve. So into each of these side rows, you want to work 2 double crochets. To show you what that's going to look like, into this first row, I'm just going to work a double crochet. And then into this same row, I'm going to work another double crochet. Just like this. Doing the same thing again into this next side row, I'm going to work 2 double crochets. So that's 1. And then here's 2. Into this next row, working 2 double crochets again. And so now just repeat working 2 double crochets for each row all the way around your sleeve until you have reached the end. So once you have finished this foundation row with our double crochets, coming all the way around the armhole, to join this foundation row and to join each row after this, you just want to slip stitch into this very first stitch. And then after you have worked that slip stitch, you can just chain 1 and turn your work. Moving on to row 1, into this first stitch, we're going to be working double crochets into each stitch all the way around, and then once you reach to the end, slip stitch into that first stitch to join. But just beginning into this first stitch, I'm just going to work these double crochets like this. And then I'm going to see you guys back once I have reached the end of my row to join. And just as I mentioned, once you have finished working all the way around with these double crochets, you just want to slip stitch into this first stitch to join this row. So I'm just going to insert my hook and then just pull through everything. Chain one and turn your work. So now to continue this pattern for your sleeve, all you want to do is just repeat this row, which is row 1, until you have a total of 31 rows. However, you can make this sleeve however long or short you would like. But I'm going to work up my 31 rows, and then after that you do not want to cut and fasten off. We're just going to do one more decrease row after that. But I'm going to do 31 rows of these double crochets, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. Alright guys, I have just finished working my 31 rows with these double crochets, as you guys can see. So we are almost done with our sleeve. We only have one row left, and the last row that we're going to do, it will be a decrease row coming all the way around our sleeve one more time. So to do this decrease row, I'm just going to chain one and turn my work. Beginning into this first stitch, we have already worked these decreases before. Oops. There we go. We've already worked these decreases before. I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop. Into that next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Just like this. And now just repeat doing these double crochet decreases into each pair of stitches all the way around. And once you reach the end, of course you want to slip stitch into that first stitch, and then you can cut and fasten off once you reach the end. So I have just finished working up that last decrease row for my sleeve. I did go ahead, cut and fasten off, so as you can see it's like pinching in our sleeve, which is exactly what we would want to happen. So now that we are all done with our sleeve, we're going to move on to working the cuffs, and we're going to make 2 of those cuffs. So let's go ahead and get started on the cuff portion of this video. So now we're going to be moving on to working the cuffs, and the cuffs is pretty much the same thing that we did for our bottom border, working those back bar double crochet rows. But just to get you started here, I'm going to first make a slip knot, and then we're going to begin with a chain of 9. Once you have your chain of 9 beginning on row 1 into the second chain, we are going to double crochet into each of our chains across. Once you have finished working these double crochets, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Now moving on to row 2, beginning into this first stitch and skipping this first turning chain, we are now going to work our back bar double crochets into each of these stitches across our row. Once you have reached the end of this row, you can just, of course, chain 1 and turn your work. So to continue this pattern for our cuff, you just want to repeat row 2 with those back bar double crochet rows until you have a total of 13 rows, or at least I'm going to do 13 rows, but for other sizes you might need to do more. But I'm going to finish up working my 13 rows with these double crochets, and then I'm going to see you guys back to cut and fasten off. So this is what my cuff is looking like after I completed my 13 rows. When I cut and fastened off, I did make sure to leave a long end, and we're going to use this end to seam our cuff to our sleeve. But before we seam our cuff, we're first going to move on to working the collar, and then once we reach the end, we'll just attach both of the cuffs and the collar at the end. So we want to make 2 of these cuffs for both of our sleeves, and then once you have that, we're going to move on to the collar. So let's go ahead and get started on the collar. So now we're going to be moving on to working the collar. To do that, I'm going to first make my slip knot as usual. Then from here, we're going to begin the collar with a chain of 6. Once you have your chain of 6, beginning into the second chain, we're going to be double crocheting into each of these 5 chains. Once you reach the end of this row, you of course just want to chain 1 and turn your work. Beginning on row 2 into this first stitch and skipping this first turning chain, we're going to be working those back bar double crochets into each stitch across our row. So to continue the pattern for our collar, you just want to repeat this row, which is row 2 with our back bar double crochet rows, until you have a total of 33 rows for your collar. This is basically the same thing that we did for the bottom border and the cuffs. So I'm going to work up my collar and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. So I have just made it back here with my collar. I ended up working 33 rows, as you guys can see. Once we have our collar and we have our 2 cuffs, what we're going to do next is that we're going to attach the cuffs and the collar to our bodice. So over here I have my bodice, and what we're going to do is just place the cuff right around the bottom of our sleeve where we did those decreases. Just like this, and then just whip stitch all the way around to attach the cuff to your sleeve. And for the collar, all you want to do is just evenly wrap around your collar all the way around, just like this, and then just whip stitch it all into place around the base of your neck hole. So that seems very straightforward, so I'm just going to whip stitch everything together, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done with my sweater, and that's going to be the end of the tutorial once I get back with you guys. Now I have just finished whip stitching my collar to the base of my head hole, and I also finished working my 2 cuffs, and this is what it looks like, just like this. And I did it for the other side as well, of course. And now that you have attached the collar and both of your cuffs, that is all you need to do for your sweater. The last thing you would need to do is just whip stitch all of, or not whip stitch, weave in all of your loose ends to complete your sweater. And yeah, that is the end of the tutorial. I hope you guys liked this video and enjoyed it, found it helpful, and I'll see you guys back next time. Bye! If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But that's all, guys. Bye!